Everywhere you look, people are shouting the same message. Work more, hustle harder, sleep less, no excuses. And today we know it as the hustle culture. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, is that what life is really all about? Is that what God really wants from us? And today I'm going to share with you what the Bible actually says about hard work and what we call today the hustle culture. So I'll start with a personal story. Due to the pressures of society and wanting to get ahead, I took on a second job to my already day job, working 40-hour weeks, to increasing that to 70-hour weeks. But honestly, after only a few months of doing this, I was running on empty. I was working really hard, but I was never really there for my family, and I was definitely not working from a place of peace. But I somehow convinced myself I was being responsible. But finally, after a few more months, it took a toll on me, and I fell ill, and I was diagnosed with stage 1 hypertension. And I was told if I continued on this path, I run the risk of getting a heart attack. And then it hit me, what am I really doing? I got rid of my second job and then started to think, what does the Bible actually say about hard work? I realized I made work my identity and I was chasing validation more than purpose. I'll read a couple scriptures for you so it hopefully can hit home with one or two of you. In Colossians 3:23-24, it says, whatever you're doing, work at it with enthusiasm as to the Lord and not for people, because you know that you would receive your inheritance from the Lord as a reward. What does this mean? It means give your all in whatever purpose job you find yourself, but do it not to please people. Matthew 6:33, it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things shall be added unto you. What does this mean? This means if you ask God for your purpose and you work in your purpose, everything else would follow. But if you do this the wrong way around, you'll be working in vain. And how do I know? Because the Bible said so. Psalm 127 verse 1 says, if the Lord does not build a house, those that build the house work in vain. And we'll go further on this in Ecclesiastes 2 verse 22-26. What does a man acquire from all his labor and from the anxiety that accompanies his toil on earth? For all day his work produces pain, frustration, and even at night his mind cannot relax. This is also futile. There is nothing better than for people to eat, drink, and to find enjoyment in their work. And I perceive that this ability to find enjoyment comes from God. This is Solomon speaking, and he explains that if you're working all day, working all night, this will be all in vain. But if you are finding enjoyment in your work, and this can only be found when you have got this purpose from God, that's the only way. That's when you hear people say, every day that I'm working, it feels like play. That's because you are working in your purpose. If you ever feel like if you're ever working and you feel like it's very easy, this is because you have most likely found your purpose. But do you know what's even worse when you're not working in your purpose? It says it in verse 26. For the one who pleases God, God gives him wisdom, knowledge, and joy. But to the sinner, he gives him the task of amassing wealth, only to give it to the one who pleases God. Damn. What does that mean? That means if you're not working in your purpose, all the money you have acquired will go to those that work in that purpose. Everything you've done, everything you've worked for, all the hard work, all the toil you've done, not in your purpose, everything you've sown for would be reaped by those that worked in the purpose. If you love your job, you're most likely working in your purpose. If you hate your job, if every day feels like toil, you're most likely not working in your purpose. And you might need to recalibrate with God what is actually your purpose. And probably in another video, I would expatiate more how to find your purpose and how to know your purpose. But those verses should really tell you a lot about it already. And the final verse is Genesis 2, verse 2. It says, "And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and on that day he rested." That to me was so profound, that even God rested after working through the 6 days of creating the whole universe. Listen, if God can rest, then you need to rest as well. Rest is spiritual, rest is godly, and if you are not resting, you are not working in alignment with God. So how do we live this out in our day-to-day lives? And as you can see in the Bible, it's not anti-work, not by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, God honors work. He honors responsibility and diligence. But there's an order, and the order matters. Seek God first, hustle second, and rest. So you need to redefine success. Before you dive into your to-do list, you need to ask God what actually matters to him today. God doesn't call us to be lazy, but he doesn't call us to chase burnout either. God's more interested in our motive and our character than our calendar. So next time when you're feeling guilty for slowing down, remember that rest is also spiritual. And if this message hit home, let me know in the comments. Let me know how you balance your work and your faith. And I'd love to hear from you and grow in this journey with you. See you in the next one.